Today we're going to be discussing, as the last part of Digital Discovery, we're going to be talking about the landscape for buying and selling games in 2019. Because if you have read the news, you'll have noticed that a lot of people are unhappy with Steam, but there are also a lot of people, well, a few companies, proposing alternatives or maybe even solutions to what Steam is doing. So before we get into that, I need to introduce my very big panel. I'm just going to go along, say who you are, what you do.
Oh, I'll use this then. I'm Jake Burkett from Grey Alien Games. I went full-time indie in 2005. I shipped a bunch of games for PC, Mac, a bit of mobile, stuff like that.
Hi, I'm James Binns, founder and CEO of Network N. We're a media business. We help promote PC games as our main input on this. Never made one.
I'm Thomas Rawlings. I run a studio in Bristol called Auric Digital, and I'm a co-director of Bristol Games Hub.
Hi, I'm Charlotte. I work for Good Game Studios. It's actually not an indie, and we are coming from web games, but as a web game developer, we're also looking into PC stores. So, yeah, that's me.
Hi, I'm Ricardo. I came from an indie studio based in Lisbon, Portugal, so we do PlayStation, Steam, and other ones.
I'm Philippe Irwin. I'm with Robot Cash. We are actually a platform, so I might be a little biased today. Just FYI.
Right, so just to kick things off and sort of set the scene, for a while now, like Steam has kind of been, for a lot of people, been very synonymous with buying games on PC. But it's kind of fallen, in the last year or so, it feels like it's fallen maybe from grace just a little bit. And I guess I'd be kind of curious to hear your thoughts on why it's gone from being sort of the darling of the PC game space to being, not pariah, that's the wrong word, but, you know, like that.
Shall I start? So, you know, we all know about the fact that Steam did Greenlight and then Steam Direct, so you can pay a fee to get on there. So obviously a huge amount of games have got on Steam, and that's good for some people, like hobbyists, but it's bad for maybe people that are full-time professional indies that maybe want their games to be get some kind of digital shelf space. So that's a problem. And then recently, October last year, Steam changed their discovery algorithm, and that impacted a large amount of indies whose games suddenly weren't getting found as much. It impacted my revenue to the extent of 50% or more. So that's pretty bad. So they've done stuff like that, which isn't good for people trying to sort of survive as a full-time indie, in my opinion.
There are two metaphors I've just thought of, so they may not hold water. One is Brexit, the other is Titanic. So Steam's changes are, if you think about it as Brexit, they have everybody wants more control and slightly better terms, so they think they should step away from Steam. But maybe actually Steam's okay. Maybe we're sort of like undiscovering the solution to PC games. That's the Brexit analogy. The Titanic one is maybe better. Essentially, everybody wants more control, so Steam's changes, adding Discord, adding a version of Twitch, I suppose, could be seen as deck chairs. Everybody's going to want more control. Everyone's going to want better terms. So maybe the Titanic, the bigger ship, has challenges, and maybe these small changes won't influence the iceberg. There you go, two analogies. Sorry.
Well, I'll chuck in an important thing, which is while for many indie devs, 2018 was a really difficult year. You know, it was, and 2017, Steam made more money in that year than it had ever made before. And I think that therein lies the thing. If they're making loads and loads of money and loads of people are saying you're doing it wrong, what's the pressure for them to listen? What I would hope is that the arrival of new stores changes that dynamic in the way that the arrival of Android changed the dynamic for Apple.
Actually, I don't have much more to add to this point, but what I think is, why can like Discord or other app stores really make a big difference? Why do you think that this can be a big difference? That would be interesting to hear.
I think something we'll probably get on to a bit later on.
Yeah, I think that the problem, it's identified by everybody. It's getting difficult and difficult, like it is on mobile environment, to get notice on Steam. And the tools you have from Steam are not there. If you want to push up and be there, you have to invest on other areas and all the influencer area to do your job.
Yeah, to repeat what my colleague said, but I think to add as well, I remember 10 years ago when people said PC was dead. right? It's console, it's mobile coming up, and then Valve said, it's not dead. Here I am. And people were like, okay, I'm paying attention. And there was a lot of competition. It was just subtle. It was GOG, it was Green Man Gaming, it was itch.io. And I think it's only recently, and I'm touching on what another colleague said, which the money got really, really big. And people, so from a gamer's perspective, from the news perspective, from a publisher's perspective, I no longer, if my game costs $8 million to make, let's say I'm a mid-tier indie, and I make $12 million, I'm break even. That's crazy. So I think there was a culmination of the press, the big money, et cetera, where now it's like, okay, let's bring on the competition.
Cool. I mean, I guess part of the issue has been something I think has been touched on is Steam slowly moving from being a closed platform, then introducing Greenlight and sort of opening up the platform a little bit to do this direct, which is that's had a very mixed reception from what I can make out, to early last year when they just opened up the platform altogether. I guess do you feel that Valve has a responsibility to curate and decide what goes in the store? Is it its role just to be the platform that stuff appears on? Because that's obviously a big problem. It's like the sheer number of games isn't helped by the fact that Valve is just letting anything with a reason on.
I'll jump in on that. I think it's Valve's responsibility to have a vision for what they want their platform to be. And I think if you are the PC games platform, then you're everything. You're the hobbyist game platform. You're the person doing asset flips. You're the AAA thing. And I think what's difficult is it's difficult to be all those things to everybody. What I would say is that they do, like anybody, they have a responsibility to their customers. And I think I made this point before, is that my view is that by not having any sense of curation, what they're doing is creating a situation where plenty of their customers are having poor experiences of buying games, buying crap. And that is going to put people off. That it won't immediately happen, but eventually it will happen. And I think eventually that will create a problem. Valve do loads of amazing stuff, and I think when we're criticizing Valve, we must not forget Steam as a developer. Steam provides a whole bunch of astounding tools. We've got games using Steam using Steam's multiplayer stuff and Steam Workshop stuff. There's loads of great tools Steam do. I just think that as part of their overall offering, their desire to not miss out on the next Minecraft or whatever is a net cast too wide, really.
I actually did a poll on Twitter recently. It got a huge amount of votes. It was actually, should Epic curate their store? Okay, which they are curating it. Okay, but 80% of developers said yes, and 80% of customers said yes, game buyers. So the general vibe is Epic should be curated, and ultimately, Steam should be. I've even told some Valve reps this, but of course, they have their own agenda, which is the sort of meritocracy of Steam, and therefore you should be spending your external marketing dollars to drive people to Steam. But then, of course, one wonders, is the 30% they're charging now worth it? When it used to be, when you could get great store placement and traffic, is it worth it now if you're doing all the work to drive people there? So they don't have a responsibility to do anything. They're a corporation. They can do what they want. But it would be nice if they did certain things, is what I think.
It's barely a corporation in lots of ways. It doesn't behave like one. It doesn't really have open rules or a proper level of insight into what goes on inside it.
It's not that big either, is it?
It's not that many people. It's an autocracy. So I think it doesn't really have a board that anyone knows about. So I think the funny thing about it is normally PC gaming Steam is really meant to be owned by a massive evil corporate where you can understand everything about how it works. Really, Microsoft should own. Sorry, they're not evil. Microsoft should own that thing, all right, rather than it being something so intuitive. So I think so down to the libertarian thing, this idea of Steam being this sort of radical marketplace where if there's 30,000 games, we'll disappoint a bunch of consumers, and they'll be the ones who say if a game is good or bad. And that's kind of okay, so long as that's exactly what you're doing. If you're saying, as well as that, there's kind of we're going to handle the creation a bit. I think the 30% thing is very interesting because actually the problem is it used to be in that 30% you had some discovery baked in, but the redesign of Steam that will be in the post takes it away. If you look at Epic Game Store as the precedent, when you go to a game page on Epic Game Store, there is no reference to any other game. And I think that you can say goodbye to all of that cross-promotion. It's simply unsustainable, the idea there'll be cross-promotion. There'll be a Steam homepage that says here's a bunch of games, but that job of saying which games are a bit like the other games using tagging or curation. I think Steam has no business in it, because all they're trying to do is create this ultra flat marketplace where every game can be on it. And I think for them to curate, if there's 30,000 people who want the games, it's one game a year for 80 years, it's an utterly unsustainable goal that they will be able to curate.
I mean, to fair to them, in their 2019 roadmap, they do talk about how to rework in the discovery algorithms, because the sheer number of games is just absurd. So credit where credit's due, and we don't know what that's going to look like yet, but they're trying to make some minor steps.
I think they are. I think, but the problem is with an algorithm, you've got to be found first.
Yeah.
I think the algorithm doesn't kick in until you've been found a bunch, until a bunch of people have found you, and the algorithm is just as good at finding terrible new games as finding good new games if they're brand new. So I think all they're doing is sort of like saying we can accelerate success with an algorithm at best.
Yeah, I think algorithms with no bottom end curation represent a fundamental danger. So, typical example, I was wanting to show my daughter some footage of the moon landing because she's been doing some stuff in school. So I pull up YouTube, we pull up footage of the moon landing. Next autoplay video, some bullshit about like aliens on Mars and conspiracy, and it's like that comes after the official Associated Press news footage. It's like if there's no bottom end curation of what goes in it, then what's to stop people that the algorithm says, oh great, well you like Life is Strange. Oh, here's some other game with story in, but it's some weird neo-Nazi, like just insanely shit thing. I think algorithms are dumb as smart as they are, and that human beings that do not work in the same way as algorithms. Algorithms, I think, to rely on the algorithm alone is really dangerous, and that's why I think Steam does have to bring the bottom end of it up. Like I just don't see any value in a platform in having things like asset flips, in having people, and you can see them if you look at the bottom end of Steam stuff. And I do use the ICO newsletter, and I click on a lot of the zero reviewed games. There's people just putting, literally complete crap. Clearly a joke. Clearly they've thought it would be hilarious to do this game to make this vague political point. And they are not games like To Be Discovered and Built. They're just like like something would post on some crappy forum somewhere. It's just crap, but all that's being swept up in it. All that's being swept up in the algorithm. And I think that's their problem that they're going to face, is exactly the problem YouTube's facing now. And YouTube's owned by Google, and Google's whole reason for being is we will find you the information. We're not going to judge on that, but we're going to give you the information. Well, fine, I want to know about the moon landings. Oh, well, they were fake. Did you know that? No, they weren't. And if your whole reason for being is to give me something, is to give me something I can rely on, then you're going to fail in that. And if Valve's mission is to give players good games, in inverted commas, then they're going to say, well, we're not going to define good. Well, if you're not going to make any steps to defining good at all, and I don't mean to define it wholly, but at least define what's shit out, then I think they're going to hit a problem.
Can I answer to that real quick? So I'm going to take the flip side. First, I agree with the responsibility fact. I think every company has an ethical responsibility, even if you don't have a legal one. But the reality is, it's a beautiful time. I don't think Valve is Facebook. I don't think Valve is YouTube yet, all right? Yes, we want to make sure that our kids are not getting fake news when they're putting something in. But to me, because of what they're doing is a response to the market. It's because of what's happening we're getting Epic. It's because of what's happening we're getting competition. And this is all healthy. This is great. Let them do what they're doing. If they know what's good for their user base, they'll change, and they are. But I'm excited they're changing slowly. Even their 20% for 10 million euros in revenue is kind of ridiculous compared to the 88% and the 90% of its competitors. Awesome. Let's make it happen. Bring everybody in. Right now, they're not threatened. They're making small moves. Well, if somebody if Amazon's in the wings, they're watching. We know that. Microsoft is watching in the wings, right? Amazon actually had a little effort a couple of years ago, as you recall, which stalled and stopped. So there's something going to happen even bigger than Epic, in my opinion. And Epic is backed by Tencent. So this is exactly, in my opinion, what should be happening. Let's shake it up.
So you like the shake-up. I wanted to go back to what Thomas said, which was, I did actually, again, talk to Valve, and I said, if your customer's general impression is that you're filling the store of crap, you need to do something about that. They said, well, actually, the algorithms don't surface that stuff and people don't buy them, so the asset flips aren't in your face and they're not being bought and they're not being surfaced. That's their argument about the algorithm. However, I said your customer perception and people like Jim Sterling banging out videos about asset flips, this is what people think is going on. So all you need is some base level curation. It can be a small amount to really just filter out those, and you say, there you go, customers, we fixed that for you. And then you can add in top level curation, which says, here are some special indie games or some interesting things that we know are good and we think you'll enjoy. And we get back to that. And I think that helps keep the culture of indie games and decent games flowing. That's my opinion on that.
I think a lot of people are quite nostalgic for the Greenlight era, where even though we all complained about that at the time, it was a nice mix of curation and sort of community, like grassroots Minecraft kind of hits.
It's funny because we're in the same building as a mobile event, I understand, and
Never heard of them.
and the App Store's done a pretty good job of this. It's full of crap, but when you open iTunes, there's 2 journalists writing a bunch of content saying these are the things that are important. So these things can coexist, but I think the way that curation will get better is it's more profitable for the people doing the curating. So if you look at Spotify and Spotify how it curates, you'll go, I wish you listened to a song by the Aphex Twin. I'd like that. And you listen to a song by the Aphex Twin, and then the next song it offers you on Aphex Twin Radio is one that Spotify own all the rights for. And it's more profitable then to play you that song. So the biggest driver for curation, I think, on PC is actually going to end up being how can the platform make more money? How can they service you a game? So Nadella just said yesterday that they want xCloud to be the Netflix of games. Netflix, again, will promote you a Netflix movie after you've watched a movie that pull people in. Over time, everyone's going to watch that piece of shit Bright, starring Will Smith. Terrible film, but over time, everyone will see it because it will get offered so many times because it's a cheap way for Netflix to fill time. Money will solve curation, but not the right sort.
Yeah, I mean, I should flip that while I'm encouraging the platform to do curation. Again, like Apple's a good example, and so we as a company, we did a game called Endgame Syria that Apple refused on the platform, not on the basis that there was some quality thing, but on the idea that games shouldn't really talk about politics. They shouldn't talk about conflicts or things like that. Although I seem to recall there was a couple of Second World War games. Did the Second World War ever get covered in a game?
Not sure.
Too soon, right? It will eventually, I'm sure. But yeah, I think again, there's you move between 2 poles of danger. One where a company can use their position to to push you stuff that you're not really asking for, or to overly dominate a space and not let new voice in. But at the same time, I think as a colleague at the end of the panel pointed out, they have a responsibility to the platform that they are as well, a responsibility to the society that they're part of, and that is a difficult balancing act. And in that, I respect that. But as Jake was saying, cutting off the crap at the bottom doesn't require you to enter either of those difficult political things. I think just when somebody's doing an asset flip or a game that is intentionally there to cheat somebody, getting rid of people who are trying to scam money out of you, surely that's at its baseline is a good thing for. But on your example of how they push other stuff at you, there was who was the movie studio who owned Blockbuster, the video chain? Was it Viacom? Yeah, and they basically go in and they'd chuck all the, if anyone remembers video shops, they'd have all the whatever film didn't do that well at the cinema. But what was interesting with that is eventually that sort of that created a problem for them because people didn't want that stuff, and it's like, yeah, I told you I didn't want to watch Bright, but you keep telling me I should watch Bright. And eventually, I think they can create their own backlash baked into it. But you're right, they won't stop them having a bash at it.
Can I just add one more thing? We are talking about PC games, okay? And we all know Steam, but there are other stores out there. And ourselves, we have been pushing and playing a little bit first with Twitch Prime, and then after with Discord, and they are graded 100%. So it's like a club, a private club. Your game is selected, it goes there for a while, and then it go out because other games go in. Does that pay off compared with Steam? From our experience, Twitch, yes. The other one, not yet. But that's things that us, as developers, we have to try out. It's pushing our game out there, put the game on the stores, see what's new on those stores, integrate the tools they have because they are different, and have some results and understand if it pays off or not, depending on the users you are get and the players you are get to your game. So, curation, yeah, sure, but it needs to be there. Because players go there because they know what they will find. On Steam right now, yeah, everybody's there. And I get, with the Twitch, when we were there, we get users on Steam also. So it generates on both sides.
Cool. I mean, you say everyone's there. I mean, there's quite a lot of publishers recently who've just who've just moved to their own platforms. I mean, Activision launched COD on Battle.net. CD Projekt released Gwent on GOG. Bethesda launched Fallout 76, that much loved game, on its own platform. I guess I'm really curious, why you think that's happened. Do you think it's the same kind of thing of something like Epic has shown that you don't need to be on Steam to have a massive success? Do you think these publishers are sick of giving up their 30% to Valve? Why do you think the bigger publishers have retreated from Steam?
I think it's own your customer, and I think probably GOG, they put Thronebreaker onto Steam after less than a month. So they sort of went, well, we're having our great time on our own platform, let's put it over there.
Best of both worlds.
I think Fallout 76 would have had a much easier time on PC if they'd been able to take advantage of Steam's patching, refund policy, customer management. I think Call of Duty onto Battle.net was a fairly safe bet because it was super well established. I think trying to go, we're launching our store with this game, you're trying to do everything in one go, whereas they had a nicer rolling start. But if you think about the long-term value of a customer Fallout 76, it's not defined yet whether it's been hit or not. I think Fallout 76 had a bumpy start, but they've got a lifetime of transactions and upsells and sequels and trying to own the customer for other Fallout games. So why do they want to do it? They want to be able to own the customer and get more points. It's as simple as that. And also, if Steam changes the rules again, then they can change randomly at any point. They can cut your discovery in half, as was discovered in December, just out of the blue. They can they could choose to vary the royalties up or down. They could do anything. So I think that level of confidence of having your own audience, your own platform, makes a ton of sense for business like Bethesda.
Actually, I have one question, or one thing what I saw here in general is, why is, if you have a AAA title and you have your users, you don't need Steam to be discovered because the people are searching for your game. Why are you not having the periphery yourself that people can come directly and play your game or buy your game, like having the payment solutions, etc.? Why? I mean, for free-to-play web games, it's standard. We always have our own payment solutions. So why is this? I mean.
I can possibly answer this from the experience of working in this for a while. So there was a point where and we go brief history lesson, where lots of the publishers were sticking their own DRM on games and things like that, trying to get you to sign up to whatever various system they want. The consumers didn't really like that. It was faffy. Often the DRM they put in would create problems for legitimate customers while not creating problems for the pirates. Then Steam came, and then lots of companies then would release games without DRM, and games without DRM could charge more than games with DRM. So DRM was clearly affecting the value the consumer saw in that. Then Steam came along, and Steam was DRM, but it has all these other things. I think it described it as a gaming social network. All the other stuff it did, the auto-updating, the patching, the developer tools, all that stuff. And then with the bundle stuff, you saw that change rapidly. People would approach you for bundles, and if you offered them a game that wasn't on Steam, they didn't want it, whereas before they did. And I think it was that convenience for the customer that they had all their games in one place, all that faffy stuff of patching and finding the community and asking questions about it and talking to the developer and, latest news on the game. It was all handled in one place. It was easy for you to get. I think the danger with the store atomization is, while I can see why it's a benefit to especially big companies to own their own fans and that, you will get, and we've seen this with music, if you remember the plethora of music stores, and then it kind of went down to Spotify. Now it's going back out again a bit. There's a finite amount of stores that customers will want to use. And I think eventually, if almost every game has got its own store attached to it, or you have to have 20 different stores installed, the customers will revolt against that, and I think they'll push back the other way. So again, these things kind of move in these cycles. And I think we're at a cycle of seeing more stores because Steam is in a monopoly position, and they're doing stuff that developers and customers maybe are not enjoying as much. But I think we'll see it swing back. And again, I think remembering that just as a player of games, just seeing how great it was having everything in one place was really powerful. I think we, again, like your Brexit analogy, we need to not forget how far Steam have moved the idea of what a store is. The store is no longer just, oh, here's the game key. It's all that other infrastructure with it, and that's the crucial thing.
I want to add just a quick comment to your question over there. I think it's obvious that they want to keep, and it's very true, it's all about the consumer. Own your customer, own the customer data. That's as important. Get rid of the 30%, but also having worked at some of these big companies myself, they all harbor secret ambitions, which is what? Which is to have their own Steam. So this is always, they have the money and the time to test it out, right? Disney's coming out with its own Netflix, right? And without going into companies, I know for a fact are evaluating this, and that's why they're starting. EA would love to have Steam right now. That's what Origins was supposed to be. But it's not there yet. But they're still hoping, and they're still putting money towards it. So that can't be underestimated.
We sell ads, and one of the biggest advantages when you sell ads is the lowest friction sale after we've sent someone to a store. And there's a reason why we love sending people to Steam, because probably they're already even signed in, so it's one more click. If we send people to a bespoke digital storefront, an indie developer who says, I'm going to make more money selling my own game, there's a lot of steps. And that friction is quite frightening. It should be frightening for anyone trying to generate new users. So that's important. And the ability of a mega brand, though, to say that friction to get Fallout 76 is worth it for a customer. That's when they can push through. But launching a sort of new game or any other type of game where you're fighting that friction, there's one thing about it. If you look at consumer websites, they all send to Amazon because everyone's got an Amazon account. Hardly anyone does affiliates from a website to send to Best Buy or Newegg because they're not sure everyone's got the accounts.
One of the things that came out about Epic was it's opt-in, but when you buy a game on Epic, you can opt in to let the developer have your email so they can contact you directly. I don't know how many customers are going to do that. I'd hope a certain fans will, but I think a lot of people will opt out. But it's more than zero, and zero is what you get from Steam at the moment. Being an old school dev, I run my own mailing list like that, and that's your core mega customers. And they will buy every new game you release and stuff like that. So that's a good step.
If you are going with connecting with the players, and that is a thing that is important for your game and for you as a developer, I would say Discord is the place to be. And the tools they have to generate from the community and the groups that you manage directly, then through your game and from the store through the game, they really work. For us, the issue over there, and going again on our experience, is we are one shot. We are a premium game. You buy it, done. And yeah, people jump in. They want to get together because it's an online game, and they want to chat between theirs. And if there is a developer, obviously they want to play against the developer, and that's funny, and it's good for everybody. But the problem is that after that, there is nothing else. And there is a lot of people knocking on your door. And if you are indie dev, that's a problem. Because if you spend a lot of time doing that, you are not doing all the other things you have to do. So it's a question if we really want everybody knocking on our door.
It's funny, think about Steam as a platform for live games. We all say, oh, well, MMOs are great because they can go and build their own audiences and have that direct relationship. If you look at Steam stats today, 9 out of 10 of the top games being played right now are live games with consistent updates and thriving communities and online play. Only one of them doesn't. I checked this before, which is Football Manager, which is sort of a game for life. It's different the other way around. But that ability to maintain live communities on Steam and have friends lists where you can tap into people's existing liquidity of friends, I think is a thing that's very hard to clone anywhere else other than Steam.
So we spent a bit of time discussing Steam and its various issues, but as we said at the beginning, there are a number of newcomers, including Discord, Kongregate Kartridge from Kongregate, even Robot Cache from Philip down at the end there. I guess I'm thinking, it's a very broad question, I'm afraid, but I guess broadly, what do you make of these storefronts, especially Discord and Epic have some very competitive revenue shares. Robot Cache lets you mine cryptocurrency, which turns into credit, which you can spend in the store. What do you broadly speaking, what do you make of the offerings a lot of these new storefronts have?
It's not fair. I go first. Want me to go first? All right. So I think, like I said earlier, I think it's pretty exciting that they're here. But I'm not seeing anything really disruptive. And again, I'm a little biased. So what are we seeing? We're seeing everybody's coming. The first thing they're attacking is what? It's Steam. What does Steam do wrong? 30% good. We'll give you 90%. I mean, we'll give you. We'll take 10% or 12% or 20%. That's the first thing they do. What else is Steam doing wrong? Well, we don't really have all the functionality we think Steam has, but we'll be better when we have it, right? We'll show you the roadmap. We'll curate. We'll have a better chat system. We'll have whatever. So yes, I'm excited to see all those things. But again, the only thing that's exciting right now is there's competition, which Steam needs to get better at what they do and to bring people to the fore. What I'm not seeing, although I did read something about what Epic plans on doing, they want to get rid of traditional chat rooms and forums, and they want to use Twitter and things like that, which is cool. So they want to modernize what's currently being used. Great, but I like disruption. And it's a big business. We know it. Let's disrupt, and I'm not seeing it right now.
I mean, yeah, from a developer point of view, and I mentioned this stuff before, I think I'm looking for a couple of things. I'm looking for the long-term players, and I think that, especially say Epic, they've got some serious capital behind them. They have this hugely successful game generating revenue. They are themselves developers, and Valve, starting a store from the point of view they were developers. That helped a lot because it shaped a lot of the tools they gave you and made your life a lot easier. I can compare. I won't name some at various points. Console platform store stuff compared to Valve, it's a very different experience as a developer. That's really positive. I think Discord and Twitch, they're already starting from the point of view of they're talking to audiences. They understand audiences. They have huge amounts of data on audiences. Where I think where it has to go next is I think the stores have to give an offering, a value offering to the player that makes them want to go and do that other store. Because unless you're giving a game like Fortnite or something like that you just can't get anywhere else, and that drives you to the store. And remember, that's how Valve started. Want Half-Life 2? You've got to get Steam. And I remember, I'm old enough to remember everybody moaning about that, hating that, thinking that was a terrible thing, evil thing that Valve did. How dare they? It'll never work out. So I think you've got to give an offering to the player to make it worth their while to invest the time and energy in setting up the store and handing over their payment details. I mean, it seems to me Google are still suffering on Android in that they let people set up Android accounts without any payment stuff, which is fine, and it helped them grow really rapidly. But when they turn around and wanted to monetize that more, let people buy and pay for apps and stuff, there are too many people not willing to go the next step. Whereas, remember, Apple right at the start said, as soon as you've got an Apple account, if you want to do anything on it, even free stuff, we need your credit card. We need to validate who you are, and then it goes from there. And the experience, it made it so simple to buy from the Apple Store. So I think they need to develop their own identities, what it is they're about, and I think they need to develop their offering to the player above and beyond the percentage revenue. Because while it's great to see the competition for percentage revenue, I think the long-term success of these stores is going to be built off more than the revenue they're offering. As you say, the disruption, I think it's a great way of putting it, and that disruption has to manifest in something they're offering the player to make them jump to your new store.
If you want an interesting margin data point, have a look at the price comparison of keys for the Division, Steam keys versus Uplay keys on a secondary market like G2A. Nobody wants Uplay keys. They can be half the price, and people are still going, yeah, really, it's an identical experience to download the game, but what they all want is it in one shop front. If you look at Kartridge and Discord, they have a good shop because they have audiences baked in when they launch. But Twitch quietly shuttered its store at the end of last year. So they've sort of given up already. Twitch, with all that might. And I think it's a funny one where, back to the Half-Life story, we did pronounce them Dead on Arrival as well. I was editing PC format in the 90s, and we were calling Steam Dead on Arrival. So good data point there. Good to call back.
I wanted to point out something which is a lot of older gamers are going, oh yeah, well, you need something good to make us go away from Steam because we've got a giant Steam library. But there's something else worth considering, and I think this is Epic's play. They've got this younger generation of gamers, right? I've got 2 teenage boys, right? One of them's definitely playing Fortnite and has purchased stuff from the Epic store. So if you've got a younger generation of gamers that does not have a Steam library, actually you want to tempt them across to you now, because in 5 years they'll be in their 20s and they'll be buying games and they'll be in their 30s and so on, and you can actually capture an audience for 10, 20 years. And even with teenagers, you've got the parents, right? So my son goes, oh, I bought Ashen on Epic. Will you play it co-op with me? Okay, fine. So now I've got that, right? So there's something beyond just tempting people away from Steam. It's getting new people into your store right now who haven't even got a store affiliation. And that's very powerful, and I think that's Epic's long game.
If you're going to bet on anyone, bet on Epic, because they've got a ton of Fortnite cash, and they're spending it quite vigorously to promote the store. And if you look at the, what you say about that liquidity of Fortnite players, all love the platform, or playing games right now, or many of them with billing details. I think anyone else launching a digital store right now or trying to actually get behind one, I think is going to really struggle.
But I think this is also going to be pretty difficult for Epic because imagine I'm a player, I play like, 20 years FIFA, but if they recommend me a role-play game, I wouldn't play it. So and this is also the question, because people who are coming to play Fortnite, are they also willing to play role-play games? So I think this might be a challenge if they educate the people like, hey, go and play some other games, which is not really similar to Fortnite. So it's going to be difficult, I think.
Yeah, I think where there's an interesting point in that is, I don't know if you saw the news came out where the guy behind Steam Spy, he works for Epic, and so he's essentially been mining all that publicly available data, and they've been planning the store for ages. And I think that's completely really clever, like, because the data is it. I remember seeing a thing about like who can compete with Google now. And it's not like you couldn't come up, I'm sure theoretically you could come up with a better search algorithm that would return faster and more accurate results. That's possible. But what you now have to replicate is Google's, 15, 20 years of user data. They have so much data now on everybody and how they act. And like the algorithm is just the tip of it now. The algorithm is the end result of all that data. I think the fact that Epic have this great game, they have this young audience, they have this audience who are plugged in and buying stuff, the fact that they're developers, the fact that they're sitting on Fortnite cash and venture capital cash, I agree. I think out of any of the people entering it now, then as Steam have, Epic are clearly going to give Steam a run for their money, and I think that's why, as you said, the competition's so exciting now.
Cool. So think about for the last thing.
All right.
When I say probably cut off the audio.
Sure. Sergey also said on Twitter that, I think it was somewhere there, that they're hoping to have about 50% of the Steam audience in 5 to 6 years. So that is, that's a big number, but also it's a long-term thing, 5 to 6 years. It means that, if you get your game on there now and it's selling, maybe you're getting 10%. Don't forget, GOG is like 5% of Steam, and Humble Store's even worse. None of the competition are anywhere near Steam. That's the issue. Though if you get some money on Epic, at least you're getting 88% of it and not less. The question is, does it take away from Steam sales, or is there actually an expansion of the audience? And we don't really know that yet.